Halloween. We'll wake the dead and make the suburbs scream. We can be whoever we want to be. This night can only get better. Let's stay up late watching horror movies. Just remember Freddy's only in dreams. Stay close and we can both avoid the creeps. This night is only getting better.
Can we make this last forever? Pumpkin smile while we're near together. Just make a promise that you'll never break. If I be your Alice, you'll be my Mad Hatter.
Candy corn and witchy treats. I'll trade your Kit Kat for receipts. You give me the sugar rush of my dreams. My tooth is only getting sweeter. I've got a Dracula cake for you and me to lay on the roof and watch the moon rising. As the bats screech above us and the wolves howl out, we'll know this night can't get any better. You'll never break. Come and dance with me this Halloween. We'll wake the dead and make the suburbs scream. We can be whoever we want to be. This night can only get better. Let's stay up late watching horror movies. Just remember Freddy's only in dreams. Stay close and we can both avoid the creeps. This night is only getting better.
Can we make this last forever? Pumpkin smile while we're near together. Just make a promise that you'll never break. If I be your Alice, you'll be my Mad Hatter.
Candy corn and witchy treats. I'll trade your Kit Kat for receipts. You give me the sugar rush of my dreams. My tooth is only getting sweeter. I've got a Dracula cake for you and me to lay on the roof and watch the moon rising. As the bats screech above us and the wolves howl out, we'll know this night can't get any better. You'll never break. Come and dance with me this Halloween. We'll wake the dead and make the suburbs scream. We can be whoever we want to be. This night can only get better. Let's stay up late watching horror movies. Just remember Freddy's only in dreams. Stay close and we can both avoid the creeps. This night is only getting better.
Can we make this last forever? Pumpkin smile while we're near together. Just make a promise that you'll never break. If I be your Alice, you'll be my Mad Hatter.
Candy corn and witchy treats. I'll trade your Kit Kat for receipt. You give me the sugar rush of my dreams. My tooth is only getting sweeter. I've got a Dracula cake for you and me to lay on the roof and watch the moon rising. As the bats screech above us and the wolves howl out, we'll know this night can't get any better. You'll never break. Come and dance with me this Halloween. We'll wake the dead and make the suburbs scream. We can be whoever we want to be. This night can only get better. Let's stay up late watching horror movies. Just remember Freddy's only in dreams. Stay close and we can both avoid the creeps. This night is only getting better.
Can we make this last forever? Pumpkin style, blowing in together. Just make a promise that you'll never break. If I be your Alice, you'll be my Mad Hatter.
Candy corn and witchy treats. I'll trade your Kit Kat for receipt. You give me the sugar rush of my dreams. My tooth is only getting sweeter. I've got a Dracula cake for you and me to lay on the roof and watch the moon rising. As the bats screech above us and the wolves howl out, we'll know this night can't get any better. You'll never break. Come and dance with me this Halloween. We'll wake the dead and make the suburbs scream. We can be whoever we want to be. This night can only get better. Let's stay up late watching horror movies. Just remember Freddy's only in dreams. Stay close and we can both avoid the creeps. This night is only getting better.
Can we make this last forever? Pumpkin style, blowing in together. Just make a promise that you'll never break. If I be your Alice, you'll be my Mad Hatter.
Candy corn and witchy treats. I'll trade your Kit Kat for receipt. You give me the sugar rush of my dreams. My tooth is only getting sweeter. I've got a Dracula cake for you and me to lay on the roof and watch the moon rising. As the bats screech above us and the wolves howl out, we'll know this night can't get any better.
Can we make this last forever?
Hello, everybody. So we're going to try something a little bit different tonight. I am your host, Mother Della Morte. This is the Horror Gallery. And tonight we're going to be talking about an area called Canewdon. Now, a few villages in England possess such a long-standing reputation for witchcraft as Canewdon. And so, yeah, join us for the Horror Gallery. All right. So anyway, I am so glad you guys joined me tonight. This is a really good one. I told you when I covered Epping Forest last episode that I had to keep myself from going down rabbit holes because this area is just so chock full of all types of folklore. So this is one of the stories that I found. Now, understand when we're dealing with folklore, they did not keep records the way that we keep records today. So most of my information is based off a folklorist by the name of Eric Maple. Now, he was born in 1916 and died in 1994. He was an English folklorist and author known for his studies in witchcraft and folklore magic in the late 19th and early 20th century in the Essex area. In particular, his firsthand research into the folklore surrounding what we call the cunning man, specifically kind of targeting on two gentlemen by the name of James Morrell and George Pickingill. And George Pickingill comes up a lot when you look into kind of hereditary witchcraft. Kind of fallen in with like Gardner and maybe some aspects of like Crowley and stuff like that. So anything that I've gotten from here has come from folklorists of some sort, either that or some sort of heritage group or historians or something along those lines. So that's what we're going to have to go with. I cannot guarantee the accuracy of this information, but it does make for interesting information. So let's pop into the comments real quick before we get started, and then we'll get on our way. Let's see. Ooh, we got a bunch of people in here tonight. Let's see if I can get these up on. Let's see. How did I do that last time? Get them up on there for everybody to see. Here we go. Oh, there they are. All right, let me get myself positioned. Let me do that. Okay, so let's see what all we've got here. All right, we have Halja, and she says, hello. Hey, hey, how are you? Yes, we're going to be talking about canoodling witches near Epping, or as we refer to, the Epping Forest. Canoodling witches in Canewdon. Nadine, hello. She says, hi, guys. And then we have Kisa. Hello, Kisa. How are you? Calvin. Hey, Calvin, over on Twitch. And we have Steve the cat in the house. Hello, Steve. He says meow. John, so glad you're here. I think you guys are going to really like this one. This one, if you like folk horror, I know a lot of people don't like it because it does tend to be slow with kind of a. It takes a minute for the creepiness factor. It kind of builds. It's like a slow burn. This kind of reminded me of what you would see in like a folk horror movie, something along those lines. It's just got some really cool folklore. Let's see. And then Frank. Hello, Frank. How are you? Let's see. There we go. Popped him up in there. All right. Mr. Giggles. So glad you're here. Yes, this is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a lot of fun. A lot going on there throughout history. And then Mr. Giggles, I acknowledge everyone. All right. So I think we are at yeah. All right. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me wet my whistle right here real quick. All right, so I did mention, for people that weren't here when we first got started, there are few areas or villages in this area of England that do possess such a long-standing reputation for witchcraft as the village we're talking about, which is Canewdon, specifically the Canewdon witches or the canoodling witches, but specifically the Canewdon witches. It is difficult to pinpoint, however, exactly when Canewdon became associated with witchcraft. However, the village of Canewdon does have, like I said, a long history of supposed witchcraft, which dates back to at least Tudor times, but probably being that this area has been settled by humans for so long, it probably goes back much older than that. Now, when the village first appeared, it is really unknown as far as Canewdon specific. But people have inhabited this area of land since at some point between 4000 and 2000 BC. Now, according to a prophecy by the famous 19th century cunning man, James Morrell, he did state that this Essex village of Canewdon, which is considered located in England's witch country of East Anglia, would be populated with witches forever. Now, indeed, the village and the surrounding area have been steeped in witch lore for a very long time. The claim is that there will always be, and I think this is so cool, there will always be 6 living witches in the village for as long as the church tower stands. And we're going to get into the specific information surrounding the church tower. But as it goes, there will always be 6. 3 will be of cotton, which are lower class, and 3 of silk, which are upper class or higher class. 1 will be the butcher's wife, and 1 will be the parson's wife. And every time a stone falls from the tower, a witch dies, and another will replace her. Now, when the last witch dies, supposedly, only then will the tower fall. So let's talk a little bit about witch hunts in general. Now, I know a lot of you guys, this is going to go over information that you're already aware of. But now, on a large scale, witch hunts and accusations of witchcraft began in Europe in the early 15th century and lasted for almost, well, it says approximately 300 years. These were mostly conducted in secular courts from somewhere around 1400 to 1775. About 10,000 people were prosecuted for witchcraft in Europe and British America. And between 40,000 and 60,000 were executed, most of them being in Europe proper. So now prosecutions for witchcraft reached a high point from 1560 to 1630 during the Counter-Reformation and the European Wars of Religion. Among the lower classes, accusations of witchcraft were usually made by neighbors. And the interesting thing is, women made formal accusations just as much as men did. So it was pretty even. Now, in some regions, convicted witches were either hung or burnt at the stake, or a combination of the two, which was traditional punishment for religious heresy. And most often, if you read, they normally were hung before they were burnt, but some really like staunch witch hunters would actually burn people alive. I think that was mostly kind of in the German areas, maybe France, but normally they would be hung or dunked or drowned or what have you before they were actually burned at the stake. Now, Essex itself was the starting point for the 1644, which in 1644, which was one of the worst witch hunts ever initiated in England. And this was led by the Witchfinder General, Matthew Hopkins. And we have not really covered Matthew Hopkins, so we're going to do that now. And I find it interesting, and like the episode states, this was an area where witchfinders feared to tread. We wonder why. So now in Canewdon, it's a small, relatively nondescript village, and it was believed to be the center of witchcraft for an area which became known as, like I said earlier, witch country, which is just so cool. I really want to go visit this village. I may not come back, but I really want to go visit this village. Now, this particular village is located in the Rochford district on the Crouch estuary. The village is sited on the highest hill of coastal Essex. And again, like anything, unless we want to be here for 3 hours, I'm just kind of touching on a lot of the folklore. Some of the close surrounding areas have some really fascinating folklore that seems to kind of combine with Canewdon or somehow linked with Canewdon. So I'll let you do your own research on that, or maybe we'll touch on some things later on down the road. Now, even today, Canewdon has a lonely feel to it, surrounded by mudflats and marshes from the Thames estuary. It is easy to imagine how isolated and insular the community must have been in the past. Now, Matthew Hopkins, like I said, known as the Witchfinder General, was a notorious figure in English history. And he led a particularly brutal period of witch trials in East Anglia during the 1640s. So let's talk a little bit about Matthew Hopkins. Now, Matthew Hopkins was born in 1620 and died August 12th of 1647. He was an English witch hunter whose career flourished during the English Civil War. He was mainly active in East Anglia and claimed to hold the office of Witchfinder General, although the title was never really actually bestowed on him by Parliament. It most likely just came directly from the church. Now, he was the son of a Puritan minister. Hopkins began his career as a witchfinder in March of 1644, and like I said, it lasted until his retirement in 1647. Now, Hopkins and his colleague, John Stern, sent more accused people to be hanged for witchcraft than all other witchfinders in England of the previous 160 years. Like, this was just, I'm sorry, these people were just evil dudes. They were just really evil dudes. Now, Hopkins accused and prosecuted hundreds of women, primarily, of course, the poor and elderly, of witchcraft, often using cruel methods to extract confessions and leading to numerous executions. His actions were part of a larger European phenomenon of witch hunts, which were widespread due to just basically the fear of witchcraft which led to accusations and trials across the continent. Again, often targeting vulnerable women based on superstition or local anxieties. Now, Hopkins claimed to be able to identify witches by searching for a devil's mark on their bodies, which most often could be a mole, it could be a freckle, it could be like a birthmark, a scar. Really, they could really find anything. If show me the person and I'll show you the witch, pretty much, is probably kind of the thing they went by. And like I said, often moles or scars, which he would prick with a needle to see if the suspect felt pain. Um, Now, he did use other techniques such as sleep deprivation, forced swimming to coerce confessions. Now, Hopkins and Stern, accompanied by the women who performed the pricking, were often traveling all over Eastern England, claiming to be officially commissioned by the Parliament to uncover and prosecute witches. Together, they were well paid for their work, suggesting, of course, that this was probably the main motivation for their actions. Now, Hopkins' activities led to a significant spike in witch trials in East Anglia, with many being accused and executed based, of course, on flimsy evidence. Now, oddly enough, the fact that Canewdon had no sensational witch trials, in fact, the village was never even visited during Matthew Hopkins' witch hunts. If the connections between the village and witchcraft practices are and were as deeply rooted as folk memory claims, how it managed to escape Hopkins' attention is very unusual. Now, of course, there could be a number of possibilities. Maybe the land traveled was just basically too difficult. It was just too difficult due to the extreme isolation and just basically the nature of the place. Or maybe the village was too poor to afford Hopkins' services. Or, which the one I like to think is probably the reason, could it be that the witches were considered just way too powerful to even risk offending them? Now, when Matthew Hopkins set out to rid the country of witches, for some bizarre reason, he was specifically instructed by Parliament to stay away from Canewdon. Now, this particular sentence, I got that from the Rockford Town team. Now, they received a Heritage Lottery Fund grant in November of 2016, and this comes from some books and research information that they performed. Basically, what they do is they collect information on different aspects of Rochford District and the surrounding areas. Some of these, of course, are mentioned here, as far as what I mentioned, by promoting local authors and historians. So I think that's pretty cool. That was some information that I could not find anywhere else. And it is quite intriguing. So what about Canewdon themselves? Did they ever have any type of like witchcraft trial or anybody, that was accused of witchcraft outside of course, Matthew Hopkins and what we think of as the official witch hunt and, Witchfinder general? They actually did. They had two ever. Now, in 1580, the spinster Rose Pye was accused of bewitching to death Joanna Snow, who was a 12-month-old child in Scaldhurst Farm. Now, she pleaded not guilty and was acquitted. However, just due to circumstance, she did wind up dying in jail, though, before her release. Most likely because in most cases, the person that was imprisoned, either their family or themselves would have to somehow raise money to be able to pay their fine to get out of jail, basically. Now, in 1585, Cicely Mencken was also charged with practicing witchcraft, and she was given 5 years to mend her ways. It appears that Cicely did not heed the warning to reform, and in 1590 was excommunicated as punishment for her evil ways. So that's about the extent of any type of accusation, witch trial, anything like that. They really just they like the old Italian grandmama, mind your business. They just didn't mess with people too much. Even though, like I said, this little village is so steeped in witchcraft lore, it's just amazing. Now, the village of Canewdon, village's reputation is for they just have a like I said, a big reputation for like strange happenings, and this is firmly established in Essex folklore, with several legends linked directly to the church that is located in Canewdon. So let's talk about that for a minute. Now, the parish church of St. Nicholas in Canewdon dates back to the 14th century. Some say the 13th century, and according to tradition, local legend, local legend, it says that this particular church, especially the tower, is associated with not only ghosts and witchcraft, but also the devil. Now, many may find it odd that such connections to a Christian place of worship would be so directly associated with such supernatural occurrences and witches. But remember, firstly, most churches, especially in areas throughout Europe, were often built on old pagan sites. Secondly, the church tower itself, even though it is connected to the church, was built for a completely different reason. The church tower itself was built to celebrate the English victory at Anacourt. And I'll explain that a little bit. And it was basically a war that I believe took place like over in France somewhere. Now, tradition has it that the original Canewdon Coven was founded in the 15th century by a local landowner, owner who fought in France. Now, while he was there, he was initiated into a coven, which then, of course, he brought back with him. Now, this seems to be the real reason or the base as to why the church has so much significance to local witches. However, it could go back even further. Now, in 1847, according to a local historian, Philip Benton, and this is cool, the remains of a huge statue described as a heathen deity was unearthed near the village. Buried there were also a number of bones which crumbled to dust when they were exposed to the air. This stone idol, which may have dated from basically before like the pre-Christian times, judging from the condition of the bones, was sadly smashed up and used to repair the local roads. So if you want haunted roads, this is how you go about making haunted roads. Now, other legends linked to the church says that anyone who walks clockwise around the tower at midnight will be forced to dance with the coven, which doesn't sound terrible at all. The legend also states that if you walk around the church tower basically clockwise 7 times, the spirit of a witch will appear before you. 13 times will make the person invisible. But if you only walk around it 3 times, everybody be writing this down, you will go back in time. So there's a lot going on with this tower. But if you were to walk around it wintershins or anti-clockwise, you're going to meet the devil. He will appear. Now, this legend is so ingrained in the Essex in this particular area that the Essex police have to section off this area around Halloween to keep people from basically trying it. So would you say, do they know something we don't know? Children also dance around the churchyard as a protection against bewitchment. In the church graveyard, a large altar-type stone tomb stands barred off in an iron cage. It is said this is where the devil lives, and he rattles his chains. Now, we're going to get into the ghosts, but we've got a lot of conversation going on over here. So I want to go to the comments, and then we're going to take a quick midway break, and then we'll get back to the ghost stories. So I hope you like this. Like I said, there's so much here. I was only able to kind of like skim the surface, but a lot of fun stuff. All right. So let's see what's going on in the comments. Spanoodling Witches of Bisquick. That's in the village over. This is the Canewdon Witches of Canewdon. You almost got me tongue-tied there. Yes, the 19th century Running Man. Which country? Which country? John's got it. Which country? Now that it never tells you. It never tells you who gets replaced. I guess whichever of the 6 die will be the one that gets replaced. Yes, and those were some of my I don't know if that was done by Amicus Films or if that was done by Hammer Films, which both actually, I tend to like Amicus just a wee bit better, but yes, Vincent Price did play, the Witchfinder General, and that was a good one. That was back when they had, the big voluptuous vampires and, all that kinda stuff, so, yes, he sure did, and that's like I said, that's a good movie. Well, and we're gonna actually get into that. So Frank says, you need to leave the forest hags alone because the witches are a little bit different here in Canewdon. They're not quite the same as what we think of when we think of witches. So John is basically, asking, just basically the whole witch hysteria, and how people could be so stupid and cruel. It's still evident today. It's still evident today. There's areas in like Africa and things like that to where you can still be accused of witchcraft and bad things can happen to you. A lot of it has to do with, I think, education level, as far as talking about like medieval times, and had to do with we had not yet entered the scientific era. So everything was based off superstition, everything. And it was very easy to accuse someone of something that you could not explain. And that's just, I think that unfortunately is part of the human condition. We always have to have somebody to blame, which is sad. No, it was not the Sasquatch. The Sasquatch Finder General, that would make for an interesting parody. Uh-oh. Yes, at least in Canewdon, we were in the mind your business era. FO, what is it? FO, FA? You mean this eye? This eye that's always watching you? I see you, John. I see you. All right. So let's go to a quick midway and then we'll be right back. So I think that was about it as far as comments so far. Be right back. If this will work. Come on. Come on.
Blazing sky, the world in flames. Nuclear fire, unforgiving claims. I survived through the dust and ash. Came back in time to give you a chance.
There we go. Now you can hear me. Okay. So we're back. We're going to go ahead and get into the ghosts now, or the ghost stories that are connected with the village of Canewdon. Now, like I said, there are a number of ghost stories that abound in the area of Canewdon, giving it the reputation of being one of the most haunted places in Essex. There are reports, even in recent years, of the ghost of an old witch, which materializes out of a gray mist by the East Church gate. Now, interesting enough, based on some information that I was able to find, apparently there were human bones that have been unearthed outside that area on the unconsecrated ground side. So, could that be this particular misty ghost? Now, there is another ghost. The most widely seen apparition is that of a gray lady with a poke bonnet. And a poke bonnet, if you were to see it, does kind of have like this, conial shape somewhat, which is kind of witchy. Now, she is the most widely seen apparition, but she has no face. Now, people who have seen her, she is normally spotted floating on moonless nights, and her normal haunt is somewhere between like the churchyard and the river, or that west gate towards the river. That's where you'll see her. Now, another popular story, which you may want to be careful of this one, refers to a headless ghost. Now, this one is seen in the church, and she does have, and I'm going to say she because it's linked to an actual supposed witch, somewhat. So we're going to call her she. She does have the habit of either like mesmerizing you or basically picking you up and flinging you in the nearest ditch. So I think that's pretty funny. So I don't know if I want to be mesmerized or slung into a ditch, but this particular headless ghost, this is what she does. Now, a local woman in the 1940s mentioned the crossroads is where a witch is buried. From other sources, it seems likely that this, if you were in this area, would be the staggered crossroads where Anchor Lane, Scotts Hall Road, and Lark Hill Road, and the lane to the church basically meet. So it's kind of like a four-way that just meets at a crossroads. Now, although this is usually construed as the witch having been executed, and that's the reason that she's buried there, an earlier source says the witch actually committed suicide and was buried on that spot with a stake through her heart. Now, I did read some other information, but I can't say whether it's true or not. I could not find any type of, link to any type of historian or to Eric Maple himself. But basically, what was being said. Now, I will say this area was from a writer that was in the Essex area, so I'm sure this person probably knows a whole lot more than me. But this particular stake is to be renewed every so often. In other words, replaced. And basically, what I read was that there were a few people, at least at the time that it was recorded or supposedly recorded, that did have in memory, like while they were alive, in fact, that this had been done. So I don't know. Maybe it's a tradition. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a bunch of hoopla. But I do find it interesting. But this particular ghost is actually somewhat linked to the headless ghost that picks people up and throws them in ditches. So there's that. Maybe she's just pissed off about being staked to the ground, or maybe it's time for the stake to be renewed. Who knows? Now, a patch near near the river Crouch in the north of the parish has long been known as the Witch's Field. It is said that a witch is said to have been buried there after drowning, and for very long afterwards, this area basically was known that no crops would grow, and it was also associated with plagues of toads. So toads would just oodles and oodles of toads would be in this area. Now, locals also reported in the 1980s that a man on a motorbike was chased by a small demonic entity that was just as fast as the bike. Weird fact about this village, and this is, I wouldn't say cool, but it's definitely interesting. Canewdon is known and also famous for being the home of Agnes Morley. Who is Agnes Morley, you may ask? She was the first person to be killed in mainland Britain by an incendiary device during World War I after a Zeppelin dropped a bomb on her home. Could you imagine? Like minding your own business, and a Zeppelin flies over and drops a bomb on your home. So let's go ahead and hold on. I've got a fur baby wanting to do shenanigans. So let's talk about the witches, all them witches. Let's talk about all them witches we've been talking about, but really, get down in depth with them. Now, the witchcraft practice here, like I said, is a little bit different, and it is older, more traditional. The Canewdon witches were usually described as what you would think of as the proverbial witch, the old, ugly woman with a very unpleasant personality, true to what you think of as the hag stereotype. Now, Canewdon witches have been known to terrorize their neighborhoods, inflicting plagues of lice on their enemies, hexing overlooked wagons or cars so that their wheels would not turn, or in recent times, the tires would go flat. Also inflicting minor illnesses on the local population. And in the 19th century, their bewitchments were countered, however, by a white witch who was known as Granny. Like, you almost think you're in the Appalachians at this point. Now, with such folk magic charms as a knife or a pair of scissors, which she would instruct people to put under their doormats, this would keep witches out. And potions were made for witch bottles that would also break bewitchments. The witches' familiars, when it comes to Canewdon witches in general, were different as well. Like, we think of, okay, a witch familiar, you're going to have like a bird, an owl, a cat is more traditional. Well, with the Canewdon witches, it's white mice. Now, the Canewdon witches kept white mice as pets, and they were regarded, instead of as familiars, they were regarded as imps. The imps had to be also passed on when the witch made her final journey into the spirit world, or basically passed on. Now, if they refused to leave the witch, in other words, she tried to give them away and they wouldn't go, then they would have to be buried with her. Now, one story goes that a blacksmith who became a witch, when he sold his soul to the devil, was given mice familiars, or imps. When he reached the end of his life, in fear of his inevitable fate, he confessed on his deathbed that he could not die until he had passed on his powers to a successor. It is said all of his imps climbed up on the bed and sat before him as he spoke. His wife, of course, refused them, but at last he was able to persuade his daughter to accept them, and only then was he allowed to die. Now, Canewdon is also associated with not only witches, but what we consider cunning men or cunning folk, which is more in line, in most instances, with kind of the more proactive, or maybe what you would consider like white magic or folk magic, that kind of thing. Very similar to what you would see in like Appalachian, like healers and things along those lines. Now, of the cunning men, there are two that stand out. The first, of course, and I mentioned him earlier, was James Morel. Now, James Morel was born in Rochford in 1780. He was the seventh son of a seventh son. And in 1812, he relocated to Hidley, Essex, where he initially established himself as a shoemaker. Now, during this period, it is said he encountered a witch or a wizard named Nebode, from whom he learned the mystic arts. Morel's inherent talent for these practices soon led him to abandon shoemaking and to become a full-time cunning man. His reputation as an unparalleled practitioner grew, attracting both local residents and affluent aristocrats seeking his unique skills. Now, Morel was renowned for distinguishing between high and low issues. And what are those, you may ask? Well, that's determining whether a client's needs are based on material aid, like herbal remedies for physical ailments, or if more of a magical intervention is needed to combat supernatural disturbances. For the latter, he would invoke the aid of benevolent spirits or angels to counteract malevolent forces. His expertise extended to astrology, locating lost items, clairvoyancy, and both casting and breaking spells. A notable tale involves him sending a burning sensation to a gypsy woman accused of cursing a girl. The gypsy was found dead the next day, supposedly burnt, and the girl was cured. Now, his particular connection to Canewdon, which is only really about 9 miles from Hadley, is significant. Now, the story goes and tells of a duel between Morel, and a witch from Canewdon who determined who was more powerful, where he commanded her basically to die. He commanded her death, and it is said she perished on the spot. Another legend describes Morel as using whistling powers to compel witches to reveal themselves by dancing around the churchyard. Now, this was, of course, in at least one occasion, an event that the local vicar, Reverend William Atkinson, prevented, because remember, one will be the butcher's wife, one will be the parson's wife. So Reverend William Atkinson prevented in order to protect his own wife, who everyone basically believed to be part of a witch coven. Now, despite his formidable reputation, Morel was known for using his abilities only for good, charging modest fees, and continuing to assist those in dire need, even in his later years and into retirement. While he was respected and possibly liked, he was also seen and revered with a healthy dose of caution. Other masters of witches were often viewed with suspicion for potential darker motives. And that's one that we're going to talk about right now. So, the second cunning man of note in the Canewdon area goes down to George Pickingill. Now, George Pickingill was a Romy who was born in 1816 in Hackney. Although he was said to have the ability to cure ailments and find lost objects like James Morel, according to some, he used curses and malevolent magic to achieve his ends. He moved to Canewdon and worked there as a cunning man. He had the ability also to control animals and was known as a horse whisperer. He died in 1909, his passing undoubtedly coming as a relief to many local people who had been intimidated by him over the years. Now, Pickingill was buried in an old, some say unconsecrated area of the churchyard. His powers, however, if local folklore can be believed, did not diminish with his death. It is said that on the day of his funeral, as the hearse drew up to the church gate, the horse trotted out of its shaft, so basically its bindings, and cantered off up the lane. It is also said that his imps haunted his empty cottage for many, many years until it was eventually demolished, with passerbyers reporting seeing their red glowing eyes in the darkness. Now, shortly before his death, it is claimed that Pickingill did, however, disband the Canewdon Coven. And there are connections. If you read about Pickingill, it is rumored that not only was one of the covens located in Canewdon, but he basically was linked to what he called the 9 covens. So one of these covens would have been in Canewdon. But like I said, based on some information, it is stating that he disbanded the coven in Canewdon, but that is something that people dispute. Certainly little was heard of witchcraft activities in the village after Pickingill died, but persistent rumors suggest the Pickingill coven still flourishes, basically kind of in a underground state in the area. Although the village has changed considerably in the last few years, with modern housing estates replacing many of the old cottages, Canewdon still exudes an eerie ambience, particularly as dusk sets in on a winter's evening. There is a palpable sense that something unseen still lingers just at the edge of your vision. And that is the story of the Canewdon witches, where the witchfinders fear to dread. So I hope you enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun looking into that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get myself out of Essex yet, because like I said, that is just a really cool county. Like, I really want to go there Like I said, it could be like a folk horror movie, and I just never return. Or maybe I just choose not to return. I don't know. Or maybe I go back in time after walking around the tower for 3 times. But I would like to visit this place. So let's see what's going on in the comments, and then I am going to bid everyone pleasant nightmares and farewell. So let's see what's going on in the comments. All right. So John says Sasquatch Finder General sounds like it would be a great TV show. It would be interesting, wouldn't it? Oh, no, Frank. He says, why are there no vampires or witches in Africa? Because it rained down in Africa. Now, see, that's going to be stuck in my head now. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Yes, the headless ditch slinging ghost. And John says this area seems to be rich in folklore tradition. It really does. It really does. I find it extremely interesting. Like I cannot get out of this county. Like I just jump from one thing to another thing to another thing. So I'll do my best, but I can't promise anything as far as my next episode. If I find something really cool, I'll just have to share it. So that is it. I hope you guys had a good time tonight. I hope you enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun researching this. And if you're really interested, just look up Canewdon. Like I said, there are all kinds of other stories associated with this area, the surrounding areas, such as the Devil House, that is on a particular island that got washed out to sea. It's a pretty cool story. Yeah, no. I'm not gonna, I would like to dance with the witches. I would like to dance with the witches. So I'll walk around it once. How about that? And John says, thanks, Mother. You are most welcome. You are most welcome. All right, let me find where I need to be in order to play my outro. Hang on just a second. Apparently, I have lost all sense of knowing what I'm doing. Where'd I go? Not there. Oh, my Lord. I am losing my mind. Huh. Oh, I remember. I remember. All right. Pleasant nightmares, everybody. Bye.
I know that the world I